You need all of that for your attack to succeed. Right now we have a tank back here, just waiting. It's like a dog who's growling but it's behind a fence and can't get through. It's just waiting to be unleashed, waiting to attack. But he can't unless we open up those lines. On the count of 3, call out the move. 1, 2, 3.
F5.
F5, exactly right, F5. Well, black is in very serious trouble because the threat here is to play F takes G6, followed by queen takes F6, winning the knight. And black has to fight back quickly, and time is of the essence. Even if you move this knight, it's not really going to help you. I would still take. And then I bring my queen to here. Check. Forcing the king to the corner, and it's almost checkmate. You can see the king is already cornered, and if my knight comes in, or one of the rook comes in, or the bishop comes in, game over. So, what does the defender want to do? Many things, but what is one of the things I've talked about that the defender wants to do in order to lessen the impact of their opponent's attack? Yes? Yes?
Trade pieces.
Trade pieces, and that's what he does. Rook takes e1, rook takes e1, and then what does he do next after that? What does he do next after that, Avyuk?
Yes, takes G6.
No, but it's now black's turn. Darshan, what does he do?
Rook E8.
Rook E8, because he's going to trade off even more. Rook to E8, he wants to trade off all the rooks. He's trying to trade off all of the pieces. Because if he can trade off the pieces, he'll have the static advantage that Cole mentioned of being a pawn ahead. And now comes an absolutely brilliant move by Botvinnik. Again, not a sacrifice, that's coming soon. And I'm going to speed up to get to that point. But a move which shows a beautiful understanding of pawn structure and of exchanges. We don't really want to avoid the exchange, because avoiding the exchange is a concession. It's like saying, well, I really don't want to trade with you, so I guess you can have the only open file on the board. No, we're not going to give him that open file. Instead, we're going to view this trade as all trades should be viewed. A business transaction. You say, okay, you want to trade a piece with me? I'll be your huckleberry. I'll trade a piece with you. But first, you have to throw in something to sweeten the deal. So we're going to let black trade rooks with us. If black throws in a little extra something to make the deal a bit sweeter for us. What move did white make to trade rooks on our terms? We're not going to take the black rook right now. If we take the black rook, the queen would take back. She has the open file. Then if I take this pawn, the queen would take back, defending the knight. I don't want that. That's trading on black's terms. I want black to trade on my terms. How can I ensure that that happens? Yes?
Moving a pawn to G3.
Pawn to G3?
Pawn to G6.
Okay, so you could take this pawn. Pawn takes pawn on G6. If that happens, rook takes rook check. Queen takes rook. And then pawn takes pawn. Because the queen won't be able to take the knight anymore. She'll be back here. So that would be eliminating one of our biggest advantages, which is this pawn, which could be a passed pawn if you play your cards right. Trade rooks on your terms. Nobody? Yes?
Rook E6.
Amazing. Rook to E6. Very well done. Rook to E6 says, you know what, you want to trade? You better want to trade, because my rook is about to get rid of your knight. And also, where's that knight supposed to go? If it goes here, then I can just take this rook for free. You're blocking your own queen. So black has to trade rooks. This rook is far too powerful in the 6th rank. But why was this trade better than the other trade? There's been a change in pawn structure. A favorable change in pawn structure. Remember, the pawns contain the clues, the secrets. The pawns tell your pieces what they need to know. And why is it favorable to have a pawn on E6? There's an obvious answer, which is that we have a passed pawn 2 steps away from queening. That's very good. But how does the pawn play with the pieces? How does the pawn interact and help our queen in some situations? Who can tell me? Yes?
It's covering more squares for other pieces to attack.
Yes, but be more specific. Which square am I talking about? Let's go back to you. Yes, Mr. Mead.
F7.
F7. If this knight moves, bye-bye king, check. Checkmate. Remember, pawns are the best defenders of squares. And this square right next to the king is what I call a sweet spot. A square only defended by the king is a sweet spot. Plus, on top of that, the cherry on top is that it's a pass pawn 2 steps away from queen. All right, let's move forward now with the game. After f takes c6, this knight is in danger. Black defends it with king to g7. White is getting his queen to her dream square. She goes queen to f4, but that's not the dream square. Where will the queen want to go next? Where will she want to go next? I'm going faster in the interest of time. Yes, over there.
H6.
That would be a great square if you're trying to get to the queen graveyard. But yes, you could back it up with your bishop and then go to h6. That is a weak square because it's a sweet spot. So I like that idea. That could be a dream square in the future. Yes?
You can move to c7.
c7 would be a check. Very good. And there's actually one more. c7, the king could get out of check, maybe king even to h6. But you're right, c7 would be a nice check. There's one more. Yes?
e5.
e5. In fact, that's what happens. Queen to e8, queen to e5. Why is this so good? I'm pinning down the donkey, pinning the knight to the king. I'm also pinning the king to the knight, because if the king moves anywhere, I take the knight. And I'm backing up this pawn. And even if the knight could move, he would then lose this pawn. So the queen is affecting everything. Even now, the center is of critical importance. And after queen e7, we reach a position. And by the way, queen e7 is to blockade this pawn, because not only to blockade the pawn, but help defend the knight. So otherwise, if this pawn advances, could be very dangerous. And this knight also needs some help, because white actually has a threat right now. Let's talk about that for a moment. If this pawn wasn't here, how would white win the knight? I know I'm saying if, but you always have to use your imagination in chess. Imagination is very important, because even if the pawn really is there, by using your imagination, you can come up with ideas to eliminate the pawn and get it out of there. If that pawn wasn't there, what would be the move? Mr. Don't tell me. All right. Queen to g5 check. King has to move to h8 or f8. Queen takes knight check. Game over. This pawn is all that stands between us and defeating one of the greatest players of all time, Jose Raul Capablanca. Well, if you want to eliminate this pawn, how do you do it? How would you eliminate this pawn? Forcibly, over there.
Knight h5.
That's right. You can destroy it, but in this case we can't, so you can decoy it. It's a lot sneakier. Destroy is brute force. You can't do that all the time. Decoy is to say, here, little pawn, I have a surprise for you. And then when the pawn moves away, you're like, haha, trick or treat. Well, the pawn takes you, it doesn't have a choice. This is check. It's a fork. We're going to win the knight anyway, so black would have to take, and then our almost win becomes a real win. We eliminate this knight, the king is without defense, and the win will play itself. So that is how we plan on winning this game. We need to play knight h5, but black played queen e7, and now this knight is defended. Now knight h5 doesn't work, at least not yet, because pawn takes knight, and if you give the check, the king can move, and the knight is still defended. And now comes one of the most famous moves of all time. I've even seen this move printed on a t-shirt. This position was on a t-shirt. That's how famous it is. Some of you may already be familiar with it, most of you probably not. White to move and win. The best move, or at least the flashiest move, of this entire game. All right, I will accept answers from everyone raising their hand. Go ahead.
Bishop a3.
Bishop a3. Bishop a3.
Library will be closing in 20 minutes.
Okay, 20. We still have 5. Yes. Bishop a3.
Queen f5.
Queen f5. Okay, queen f5. Very sneaky move. Yeah, if they take you, you take back and get a fork. But you'll still lose a queen and a knight for just a queen and a pawn, right? The move is, congratulations. Oh, what were you going to say? The move is bishop to a3. Remember I told you that this bishop-pointed bishop, this overgrown pawn, the much maligned bishop that I've been teasing and ridiculing for this entire lecture, is actually the hero of the entire game. And it's the hero because through sacrificing himself, he eliminates one of the last defenses that black has in their fortress. Black is trying to set an ironclad fortress and prevent us from breaking through, but after bishop a3, there's no more defense. The queen has to move. And if she goes here to keep the knight defended, then we can just play e7, and the knight will no longer be defended. So the queen has to take on a3. There's no alternative. And now, anyone who's been paying attention will know what the next move is. So on the count of 3, call it out. 1, 2, 3. No! Knight to h5. The point of this was to win this knight. Sometimes your position, your attack is on the verge of a breakthrough, but one thing is holding you back. What's the one thing holding us back here? The G pawn, yes, but more specifically, the knight on f6. What's holding the knight on f6 together? The g-pawn. So we eliminate the g-pawn, and then we eliminate the knight. With what move? Queen g5 check. The king goes to f8, and what's the next move? We're almost at the end of the game now. The king goes to g8, and now after king to g8, I believe the next move is... Yes, the next move is, who can tell me? It's not queen f7. It's not queen f7. That would work too. But there's a simpler move, yes?
E7.
E7. Notice queen f7, king h8, queen f8, checkmate. We win. We can go home. Why not? Why not?
Because the queen can come down.
We can resign and then we can still go home. So yes, we're not going to play queen f8. Look at the whole board. Just because you have the advantage on the king side and black broke through on the queen side does not mean you should let your guard down. Long range pieces, the archers, the bishops, the rooks, the queen, they go long distance. And so a queen from way over here on the queen side can defend the king way over here on the king side. The move played was e7. We're threatening to get a queen. That's threat number 1. And what is threat number 2? Threat number 2, Ari?
Checkmate.
Checkmate. Let me show you, and be more specific. What is the checkmate? Queen f8, checkmate. And the game ends kind of with a flurry of checks. Reminds me of Indiana Jones in that scene where a guy has like 10 swords and he's like... And then Indiana Jones takes out his gun and he's like... And he's like... So that's kind of what happens. Capablanca's like check, 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 check. And then Botvinnik is like... And the game is over. So let me see how it goes. I don't remember the exact sequence of checks. I might, but okay, let's see. After e7, there was definitely queen c1 check, king to f2, definitely queen d2 check. I think so, yes. King to g3. All we need to do is get out of checks. If we get out of checks, game over, because we have mate this way, and we have mate this way. And black has no way of defending both. And how fitting is it that in the end there were 2 checkmates. One of them I would classify as a central move, which was our original plan of dominating the center. The other I would classify as a kingside move, which was our second plan of attacking on the king side. Those plans both came to fruition perfectly because we finally climbed that ladder of advantages all the way to the top rung. We're about to reach that top rung. It's about to be checkmate in one of 2 ways. You just have to get through this annoying maze of checks with those Indiana Jones swords coming your way. So queen to d3 check. Any guesses where the king goes now? Call it out.
G4.
King h4. King h4. Queen e4 check. Any guesses where the king goes now?
H3.
Call it out.
King takes h5.
King takes h5. Queen to e2 check. Any guesses where we go now?
G4.
G4 would allow queen takes h2. Don't let your guard down. Don't let your guard down. So we're not going to play g4 yet. At least I don't think so. What was the move? Yes, okay, king. So it's not a pawn move, it's a king move. King to? King to h4. Queen to e4 check. Now you can play g4. Queen to e1 check. That is his final sword thrown at you. But after the next move, black resigns. One more move and it's game over. What is the final move of this game? Anirudh?
Queen h5.
Queen h5? You just changed the king's gender. Yes.
King h5.
King to h5. No more checks. At least no more safe checks. And Capablanca finally throws in the towel and resigns. So this is a beautiful game, but the move bishop a3 was like the icing on the cake. That's the most famous move, but that's not what this game is about. This game is about strategy. It's about understanding the pawn structure, understanding which side of the board we have the advantage on, and that will tell us which side of the board we should play on. White had the advantage in the center, he played in the center. Black had the advantage on the queen side, he played on the queen side. But the difference was black made the mistake of closing down the side of the board where he had the advantage. White made the very good move, or the very good idea, of opening up the side of the board where he had the advantage. And not surprisingly, it was white who won this game. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I would love to come back sometime and lecture again. I meant to show you the story of King Charles, but unfortunately we won't have time for that today. Any quick questions? You can take 1 or 2. Yes?
Which is better, trying to salvage a side that you're losing or trying to increase your advantage?
That's a very good question. And of course it will depend on the position like everything else. But I follow the first world champion, Wilhelm Steinitz, who said you should not play on the side of the board where your opponent is strong. You should focus on the side of the board where you're strong. Now you may do some prophylaxis You may help prevent some threats on your weak side, but your focus and your energy should be on your strong side. Any other questions? Yes?
So when the queen was in that position, in that row of E, couldn't it take that pawn in that white queen to take that black queen, but then the king could have more moves because they couldn't give them because that white queen couldn't give the black queen a checkmate with only that queen because there's moves for the.
You mean that this queen could have won this pawn earlier? Or, not sure I'm getting it, but maybe you can tell me afterwards because I know we're going to have to go. But black never had an opportunity to trade queens. I will tell you that. If black could have traded queens, then that would have defended black. Black would win the game. This position without queens, easy win for black. Black plays king f7, game over. So it's because queens were maintained on the board. But black had no opportunity to trade queens or stop this pawn. I'll take one more question. Earl?
Yeah, instead of Capablanca's plan of playing knight e8, knight c6, knight a5, and knight e3, in addition to the flaw that is by playing c4, could he have potentially played like knight c7, knight e6, and utilizing the knight onto the king size, potentially going to f4 or maybe f8 for defensive purposes?
Absolutely. I won't have time to set up the whole position now, but you're absolutely right that the knight on the queen side, it did help him win the pawn, but he misevaluated the strength of that.
Since White's plan is obviously to move towards the king side, he's going to flee that pawn anyway.
Yes.
And then if he potentially pushes e4, then f4, then the f4 square.
In fact, a knight on e6 would be the perfect blockader to this e5 pawn. And we know that when your opponent has a very well-advanced central pawn, the best way to limit its scope and to prevent, and also to restrict the pieces behind it, is to put a knight as a blockader of that pawn. So I think you're right, Earl, and I'm sure in retrospect, Capablanca would have wished that he brought his knight this way.
Probably still at a disadvantage.
Still disadvantage, but maybe holdable. It also would have only taken 2 moves as opposed to 4 moves. And even though it was a close position, time is still important. And I think he just got maybe a little overconfident in his ability to win a pawn and maybe underestimated his opponent's plan. Let me leave you with this, and we'll end it with this sentence. Petrosian, Tigran Petrosian, one of the great world champions from Armenia, he said that he would spend sometimes twice as long thinking about what his opponent was trying to do as he would thinking about what he himself wanted to do. Most of us are the opposite. We have a general bias in which we're so focused on ourselves. It's the human ego, right? So we get trapped by our own ego. We focus exclusively, or maybe not exclusively, but the majority of our thought is on what we're trying to do. If you can change that, if you can try to spend even more time thinking about your opponent's plans rather than your own, I believe you'll have better results over the chessboard, because you'll be doing something that very few players do. You'll still think a lot about your own plans and ideas. Everyone does that anyway. But if you can focus more on your opponent, you'll have a better chance of seeing problems before they arise and preventing them from happening in the first place. Thank you, guys.